attacks me on a regular basis. She says stupid shit on a regular basis. It just happened to coincide. Can I just say this?
Have platforms that have stuff on them that not everyone on that platform or who consumes stuff on that platform enjoys. And The View is a particularly weird place to do a manipulation.
It's called The View?
It's called The View. It's not called The Facts.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting that it's called, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's The View.
Well,
that's the problem in America. There is one view, one true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
Bill Maher finally calls out Whoopi Goldberg live on TV. No holding back. YouTube, Whoopi Goldberg is the subject of Bill Maher's attention once more, but this time it feels different and not everyone is on her side. Whoopi, according to many detractors, has a reputation for being out of touch and occasionally even provocative. However, people pay attention when Hillary is challenged by someone like Bill Maher. This was more than just a disagreement. It was direct, piercing, and difficult to ignore. Please click subscribe before we break it down, since this is growing quickly.
What'd you think of Whoopi Goldberg saying it's worse to be a black person in America today than a woman in Iran? You know, I see we were talking about the trans issue before, and the New York Times really has come over on that to the sort of the sensible, liberal, not crazy woke position. I think this is great first step toward getting the Democrats back to sanity, and a second good step would be we got to do something about The View. I really believe that. I mean, it's huge in Iran, though.
Bill Maher provides a thorough analysis of Whoopi Goldberg's argument rather than just responding to it. He claims that a more thorough examination refutes the comparison between Black Americans and Iranian women. At this point, things start to become serious. Iranian women are heavily restricted by the government in many aspects of daily life, including surveillance, dress codes, and uneven rights in marriage, travel, and the court system. Violating hijab regulations can occasionally result in an arrest, fines, or even jail time. Now contrast it with the U.S. Black Americans actively engage in civic life, voting, starting businesses, holding public office, and influencing national policy despite significant obstacles. The question is therefore straightforward. Are these circumstances truly similar? Maher's response is everything from simple. Additionally, he believes that this parallel is not just flawed, it may misrepresent reality at home while
The View in Iran, always the head cover. Can't even tell which one is which.
My district in the great state of Texas is actually a white majority district that President Trump would have won by 25 points. As I said, I'm a direct descendant of a slave. My great-great-grandfather was born on a Rosedale plantation. I am literally being judged not by the color of my skin, but by the content of my character. That's the progress, because, like, a lot of white people had to vote for me. A lot. So I don't even ever want to hear Whoopi Goldberg's conversation about how it's worse to be black in America right now. That's a bit far. And my father, who's 75 years old, he was a man that was in the French quarters that had to go get a sandwich to the back door of the building. And his son is now a United States congressman in a white majority district in Texas as a Republican. That is America. That's America.
Downplaying actual injustice abroad. Further support for the premise can be found in the following example. Wesley Hunt talks about his great-grandfather, who was undoubtedly oppressed over a century ago. This discrepancy is significant since it demonstrates the extent of change. Representation at the highest echelons of business, society, and government has replaced systematic exclusion and segregation. Because of this, critics argue that Whoopi Goldberg's statement seems disconnected, not because there aren't problems, but rather because failing to acknowledge that progress results in an incomplete and occasionally deceptive narrative. And this is the more significant problem. Reality is obscured when complicated facts are reduced to sentimental sound bites.
Juneteenth, it's a Texas holiday, began in Texas in Galveston. General Granger came and read the Order Number 3 that finally abolished slavery months after the war, because the war took a time to get to Galveston. We celebrated that when I was a kid in Texas, but it becomes national a year or two ago, and Donald Trump doesn't want to celebrate that. To me, it's exactly what you're talking about. So is it 600,000 people died so that we wouldn't enslave people anymore, and the fact that freedom won is a good thing. We should honor that. That's what Juneteenth's about. I don't know why President Trump didn't want to honor that.
So I don't want it. I don't want Black History Month. I don't want all these days for it to make everybody feel special. I'm an 80s baby. Everybody's too sensitive anyway. we're all Americans anyway. This holiday
That's what
came.
Morgan Freeman said.
Morgan
He
Freeman,
said,
I can't agree more with him.
Yeah, he said that to Mike Wallace. He said, I'm an American. Do you want to be called a Jew American?
At this moment, things begin to take an unexpected turn. The fact that Bill Maher concurs with Donald on this matter speaks volumes. Maher's long-standing criticism of identity politics, which he views as repressive, is clearly connected to this. His claim is straightforward, but contentious. Even with the best of intentions, dedicating an entire month to a particular racial group like Black History Month has the potential to promote division rather than unity. Stressing ethnic, cultural, and political distinctions all the time could widen rather than narrow the gap. It may cause people to view themselves solely via their identities rather than uniting them. Maher's issue persists despite claims that it is more about recognition than loneliness. He believed that the world should be united rather than divided.
Celebrate Juneteenth too, and non-Italians celebrate Columbus Day. And
I'm all for any holiday.
I'm a half for it. I get half the day off on St. Patrick's Day.
Well, a lot of
Oh, you have to look.
everybody gets back on St. Patrick's Day. That's a good point.
Did you have a question for the congressman there?
No, are you telling me you're black?
Yes.
You don't see color, right?
We don't see
Unbelievable.
folks.
At this moment, things begin to take an unexpected turn. The fact that Bill Maher concurs with Donald on this matter speaks volumes. Maher's long-standing criticism of identity politics, which he views as repressive, is clearly connected to this. His claim is straightforward, but contentious. Even with the best of intentions, dedicating an entire month to a particular racial group like Black History Month has the potential to promote division rather than unity. Regularly bringing attention to political, cultural, and ethnic disparities may exacerbate them rather than improve them. It may cause people to view themselves solely via their identities rather than uniting them. Maher's issue persists despite claims that it is more about recognition than loneliness. He believed that the world should be united rather than divided.
And finally, Newell, someone must tell the usual suspects on the far left that the saying is, when you're in a hole, stop digging, not keep digging. Talking about doubling down on what got you fucked in the first place. Even the one concession I've heard a few people on the losing side offer, that liberals should stop saying the Trump voters are stupid, comes with a kind of unspoken parentheses. We know they are stupid, just don't say it.
Maher doesn't end there, though. His criticism is sharpened by going directly to The View. According to him, the show frequently hurts liberalism more than it helps, since it puts exaggerated viewpoints that don't seem to relate to regular Americans over genuine discussions, which has repercussions. Viewers become skeptical after hearing those arguments since they are not convinced. He contends that the message's lack of resonance and simplicity irritate even some on the left, and Whoopi Goldberg frequently serves as the public face of those gatherings.
Yeah, I got bad news for you. They don't have a monopoly on stupid. You wear Queers for Palestine t-shirts and masks 2 years after the pandemic ended. And you can't define woman, person who menstruates. You're the teachers union education party, and you've turned schools and colleges into a joke. You just lost a crazy contest to an actual crazy person.
Maher takes it a step further. He says the show relies too heavily on emotion and strays from fact-based conversation. According to him, it feels more like an echo chamber where ideas are accepted without scrutiny, and opposing viewpoints find it difficult to gain traction. He feels that the goal is to elevate the conversation and bring it back to reality, rather than attempting to silence anyone. Furthermore, this criticism...
You love to speak truth to power, and we always should, but you have completely lost the ability to speak truth to bullshit. The Democratic polling firm Blueprint told Democrats months ago that black voters, aka their supposedly liberal base, were more likely to find the president too liberal than too conservative. They also found that voters didn't just want Harris to distance herself from Biden, they wanted her to distance herself from what they believe the entire Democratic Party has become, a Portlandia sketch.
Is not limited to television. The Democratic Party is coming under increasing criticism. There is pressure on leaders like Kamala Harris to shift their stances because some believe the DNC is losing touch with voters. However, the difficulty is genuine. A reset is unlikely since many up-and-coming leaders follow the same path that their detractors are criticizing. resulting in a vicious cycle of similar concepts, messaging, and tactics. Bill Maher is steadfast in his defense of the right to free speech in spite of everything. He opposes Whoopi Goldberg quitting The View, regardless matter how much he disagrees with
Whoopi Goldberg, because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week before. So everybody was like, "Oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma." First of all, I'm going to talk about this at the end of my show next week, teaser. But there is no fucking thing as karma, okay? Get it for that. Whoopi attacks me on a regular basis. She says stupid shit on a regular basis. They just happen to coincide. But can I just say this? I had on last week Ira Glasser, former longtime head of the ACLU, talking about free speech. Whoopi Goldberg, who, by the way, I hope is still a friend. We can disagree with each other. Should not be canceled or put off her show, as much as I totally disagree with her crazy statement.
because it creates a risky precedent for stifling viewpoints, no matter how incorrect they may be. He believes that there should be greater discussion about them rather than ending them. He also draws attention to what he perceives to be a double standard. Would the tolerance be the same if the roles were switched? Maher is obviously not persuaded. That takes us to the main problem. Strong opinions aren't the issue for many of The View's critics. Rather, it's how those viewpoints are handled when they're questioned. Genuine dialogue vanishes and is replaced by a one-sided conversation when
But isn't it interesting that it's called, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's The View.
Well,
that's the problem in America. There is
clearly
one view,
right, and
one
that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
That's correct. I think that's not actually, like, you're right, the name raises questions, and certainly there's been some much covered internal politics on that show, but I do think that, there is space. Even that show does have space. When Whoopi said what she said, there was quick pushback from other panelists. They were like, oh, I don't know. Actually, I think that might be...
Agreement devolves into violence. This damages credibility, restricts ideas, and alienates viewers. Because diversity, not conformity, is what defines a true conversation. And if it keeps happening, the difference that everyone claims is closing could really widen. You are already aware that this is a challenging issue if you have read this far. Therefore, if you thought this was helpful, please click like, subscribe, and stay tuned as the discussion is far from finished.